Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, why did I share all that? Maybe it was with a coworker or an old friend you ran into or someone on social media. You poured out your heart, your struggles, your wins, and then silence. Or worse, a response that made you regret saying anything at all. We live in a world where we are told to be real, be authentic, put yourself out there. But here's the thing. Real authenticity isn't about broadcasting every detail of your life. It's about knowing who has earned the right to hear your story. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Sharing is not a currency you owe to the world. It's a gift you give to those who have proven they can hold it with care. Now, let's be clear. Silence is not the same as secrecy. There's a difference between hiding and protecting, between withdrawing and choosing. We don't have to announce every move, every struggle, every joy. Some moments, actually many moments, are sacred in their privacy. And in that space, we find power. Because let's be honest, sometimes oversharing isn't about connection, it's about seeking validation. We want people to tell us, you're doing great, I see you, you matter. But the truth is, no amount of external validation will ever replace self-trust. When you stop telling everyone what's going on in your life, you start listening to yourself more. You stop looking for approval and you start feeling it within. There's also something to be said about the power of mystery. Some of the most powerful people don't speak about everything they're doing. They move in silence. They protect their dreams until they're ready to be seen. They understand that privacy isn't about hiding. It's about holding space for something sacred. Have you ever felt like you were spilling your heart out to someone only to be met with indifference or worse, judgment? That feeling of regret, of wishing you had kept things to yourself, is something we've all experienced at some point. And it happens because we forget a fundamental truth. Vulnerability is not something we owe to anyone. It is something we grant to the right people at the right time. We often hear that being open and vulnerable is a sign of strength, and that's absolutely true. But what we don't talk about enough is who deserves that openness. Vulnerability is powerful, but like any power, it needs to be handled with care. It's not something to be handed out freely to every acquaintance, coworker, or social media follower. It's something to be shared with the people who have proven they can hold it gently without breaking it or using it against us. Think of vulnerability like a home. You wouldn't leave your front door wide open, letting just anyone walk in. You decide who gets a key, who gets invited in for coffee, and who never makes it past the doorstep. Your personal experiences, struggles, and emotions deserve that same level of discernment. Not everyone is meant to know your deepest fears, your biggest dreams, or your private battles. Some people simply haven't earned the right to that information. Yet in today's world, especially with social media, we're often pressured to overshare. We're encouraged to be real, to tell our truth, to lay it all out there. And while there's a time and place for that, it's also important to recognize that not every truth needs to be told to every person. There is a profound difference between being authentic and being reckless with our vulnerability. So how do we decide who has earned the right to our vulnerability? The answer lies in trust. Does this person listen without judgment? Do they hold space for your feelings rather than rush to fix, dismiss, or critique them? Have they shown up for you consistently, proving that they can be trusted with your heart? If the answer is no, then maybe they aren't the right person to share with. This doesn't mean we walk through life with walls so high that no one gets in. It means we build gates instead of barriers, allowing the right people access while keeping ourselves protected from those who haven't earned that level of intimacy. Vulnerability is not about exposure, it's about connection. And the most meaningful connections happen when we share with those who have proven they are safe places for our truth. So the next time you feel the urge to open up, pause. Ask yourself, has this person earned my trust? Will they honor what I'm about to share? Am I sharing this because I truly want to or because I feel obligated to? Because vulnerability should never be forced. It should never be expected. It should be a choice, your choice. And the people who truly deserve your story, they'll never demand it. They'll simply create a space where you want to share it. We live in a world that glorifies constant updates. From social media posts to daily check-ins, there's an unspoken pressure to let people know what's happening in our lives at all times. If we're quiet, people assume something is wrong. If we don't share, they wonder what we're hiding. But here's the truth, choosing silence doesn't mean we're being secretive. It simply means we are protecting what matters most. There is a difference between secrecy and privacy, and yet they are so often confused. Secrecy comes from a place of fear, shame, or avoidance. It's when we actively hide things because we're afraid of judgment or consequences. But silence is often an act of self-respect. It's about knowing that not everything needs an audience. It's about understanding that some things, some moments, some experiences are sacred enough to be kept just for ourselves. Think about the most meaningful moments in your life, the ones that shaped you, moved you, or made you feel truly alive. Were they shared with the world immediately, or did they unfold quietly in the presence of only a few trusted souls? Some of the most beautiful and transformative experiences don't need public validation. They don't need likes, comments, or applause. They need time to breathe. They need space to be felt fully, without outside noise. Silence is also an act of power. It allows us to move with intention rather than impulse. When we constantly share every detail of our lives, we invite opinions, expectations, and sometimes even criticism that we never asked for. But when we hold certain things close, our dreams, our healing, our personal growth, we give ourselves the freedom to navigate them without interference. We become more in tune with what we truly want rather than what the world thinks we should want. And let's be real, sometimes people aren't asking about your life because they care. Sometimes they're asking out of curiosity, out of habit, or even out of gossip. Not everyone who listens is listening with good intentions. Some just want to collect pieces of your story for their own entertainment, and that's why silence is such a powerful filter. It separates those who truly care from those who are just passing through. There's also something to be said about the beauty of the unspoken. Some of the strongest connections we have with people don't require constant updates. True friends, true partners, true family don't need daily reports to know you're still there. They don't take your silence as distance. They take it as trust. They understand that when you're ready to share, you will, and until then, they respect the space you need. So the next time you feel like you should share something, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing because I truly want to or because I feel pressured to? Does this moment need validation or does it need protection? Who am I sharing this with, and do they truly deserve to hold it? Because at the end of the day, silence isn't about withholding. It's about honoring. It's about knowing that your life is yours first, and you get to decide which parts are meant for the world and which are meant for you. Have you ever caught yourself waiting for someone to tell you that you're doing okay? Maybe it's a friend, a partner, a boss, or even a stranger on social media. You share an accomplishment, a struggle, or just an everyday moment, hoping for a response that reassures you, you're seen, you're valued, you matter. But what happens when that response doesn't come? When the likes don't add up, when the compliments don't flow, when the acknowledgement never arrives? If that moment of silence shakes your confidence, it's a sign that you've been outsourcing your self-worth. And here's the hard truth. As long as your sense of validation depends on others, you'll always be chasing something you can't control. Why do we seek validation? From an early age, we are wired to seek approval. As children, we look to parents and teachers to tell us we're doing a good job. As we grow older, that need shifts, but it doesn't disappear. It just takes different forms. We seek validation through praise at work, through compliments in relationships, through applause for our achievements. And in today's world, we seek it through likes, comments, and followers, tiny digital affirmations that tell us, you are enough. But the problem with external validation is that it's unreliable. One day people praise you, the next they ignore you. One moment you're admired, the next you're forgotten. When you base your worth on others' approval, you place your power in their hands. And that is a dangerous place for it to be. Real validation comes from within. So what does it mean when we say validation is an inside job? It means that your worth is not up for debate. It means that you don't need outside confirmation to know you're valuable, capable, and enough. It means shifting the way you measure your own success, not by what others say, but by what you know to be true. Think about it. Some of the most successful, creative, and inspiring people in the world got there because they didn't wait for validation. They didn't ask for permission to believe in themselves. They didn't stop when others doubted them. They kept going because they knew deep down that they were on the right path, even when no one else could see it. How to cultivate internal validation. So how do you stop seeking external approval and start validating yourself? Here are a few key shifts. Define your own success. Instead of measuring your worth by what others think, create your own standards. What makes you proud? What feels right to you? When you set your own benchmarks, you stop needing others to tell you you're on the right track. Trust your own voice. Every time you seek validation, ask yourself, do I already know the answer? Most of the time you do. The question isn't whether you're good enough, it's whether you trust yourself enough to believe it. Detach from outcomes, stop basing your self-worth on how others react to what you do. Whether it's a project, a decision, or a personal goal, remind yourself, I did this for me, not for applause, not for approval, just for me. Celebrate small wins without an audience. Can you feel proud of yourself even if no one knows? Can you accomplish something meaningful without broadcasting it? The ability to celebrate in silence is a sign of true confidence. Recognize the temporary nature of praise. External validation feels good, but it's fleeting. The same people who praise you today might ignore you tomorrow. That's why real self-worth has to come from within. The freedom of self-validation, here's the beautiful thing. When you stop needing validation from others, you become unstoppable. You no longer shrink when people don't notice you. You no longer second-guess yourself when approval is absent. You move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that you decide your worth, not the world. And the irony, when you stop seeking validation, you often end up receiving it anyway, because people are naturally drawn to those who don't beg for approval. Confidence is magnetic, but the difference is you don't need it anymore. It's just a bonus, not the foundation. So the next time you find yourself waiting for someone to acknowledge you, pause. Instead of looking outward, turn inward. Remind yourself, I am enough, not because someone says so, but because I decide so. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful validation you can ever receive is the one you give to yourself. In a world where everyone is constantly sharing their every move, there is something undeniably powerful about a person who doesn't reveal everything. A person who moves quietly, works diligently, and lets their actions, not their words, speak for them. Mystery is often misunderstood. Some see it as being distant, secretive, or unapproachable. But in reality, mystery isn't about withholding, holding your power, holding your energy, holding your dreams close until they are strong enough to stand on their own. We've been conditioned to believe that visibility equals value, that if people don't see our progress, our growth, or our success, then it must not be real. But think about the most compelling figures in history, in leadership, in entertainment, even in your own life. The people who leave the strongest impressions aren't the ones who constantly talk about what they're doing. They're the ones who do, who surprise us, who show up with undeniable results, who carry an energy of quiet confidence. And that's because mystery is magnetic. Why mystery draws people in? Human nature is wired for curiosity. When something or someone is fully predictable, we stop paying attention. But when there's a sense of the unknown, we lean in, we want to understand, we want to know more. That's the power of mystery. It makes people intrigued, makes them wonder, makes them respect what they don't fully understand. Think about some of the most captivating people in your life. Are they the ones who tell you everything about themselves right away, or are they the ones who reveal themselves in layers over time? Mystery keeps people engaged because it signals that there's depth, something beyond the surface, something worth discovering. The downside of oversharing, in today's world, there's an expectation to constantly update people on what we're doing, to post our plans, our wins, our struggles, to make everything public. But the more we give away, the less value it holds. When you share everything, you take away the intrigue, you invite unnecessary opinions, criticism, and expectations that can weigh you down. There is a difference between being open and being exposed. Openness is sharing intentionally. Exposure is giving away too much too soon to the wrong people. And once something is out in the open, you can't take it back. When you keep certain things to yourself, your next move, your personal growth, your silent victories, you maintain control. You choose who gets to know, when they get to know, and how much they get to know. That is power. Moving in silence, the art of surprise. One of the most powerful things you can do is let your results speak for themselves. There is no better feeling than working quietly behind the scenes than showing up with something undeniable. Whether it's a career move, a personal transformation, or an achievement, you didn't feel the need to announce in advance. When you don't tell everyone your plans, you eliminate external pressure. You free yourself from expectations, from doubters, from people who project their fears onto you. You give yourself room to change your mind, to pivot, to grow without anyone watching or critiquing every step. This isn't about being secretive for the sake of it. It's about understanding that your journey is yours, that not everything needs to be performed for an audience, that some of the best moments in life are the ones that unfold without a script, without spectators, without unnecessary noise. How to cultivate mystery in your life. If you want to harness the power of mystery, start by practicing these habits. Speak less, do more. Instead of announcing what you're going to do, just do it. Let people see the outcome, not the process. Surprise is one of the greatest elements of power. Be selective with your shares. Not everyone deserves access to every part of your life. Share with intention. Some things are meant to be sacred, private, and protected. Embrace the pause. You don't have to respond to everything immediately. Let people wonder. Let them sit with the unknown. Your silence can often say more than words ever could. Keep them guessing. Stay unpredictable. Be the person who evolves, who shifts, who grows in unexpected ways. People lose interest in what they fully understand, but they stay intrigued by what they can't quite figure out. Protect your energy. The less you explain yourself, the more peace you'll have. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your dreams, your choices, or your personal growth. The power of being unreadable, the world respects what it can't easily define. When you keep an element of mystery, people don't know what to expect, and that's a good thing. They can't put you in a box. They can't predict your every move. And in that uncertainty, you gain an edge, because mystery is more than just a social strategy. It's a form of self-respect. It's recognizing that your story doesn't have to be available to everyone, that your next chapter is yours to write and yours alone. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to justify, to prove something, pause. Remember that mystery isn't about withholding information, it's about owning your narrative. And when you do that, you don't just gain power, you gain freedom. Boundaries, it's a word that can make some people uncomfortable. It sounds rigid, cold, like a wall built to keep people out. But in reality, boundaries are not about exclusion. They are about protection. Not just protection from harm, but protection for love, for connection, for self-respect. We often think of love as limitless, giving, sacrificing, always available. But real love, healthy love, sustainable love has limits. It has structure. It knows where it ends and where it begins. And that's why boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges. Bridges that help us honor ourselves while still showing up fully for the people we care about. Why we struggle with boundaries. Many of us were raised to believe that setting boundaries is selfish. We were taught to accommodate, to put others first, to say yes when we really wanted to say no. We learned that saying, I don't have the capacity for this right now, makes us difficult or cold. And so we learned to override our own needs, to ignore our exhaustion, to tolerate disrespect, to give until we had nothing left. But here's the truth. People who truly love and respect you will never be offended by your boundaries. Because boundaries are not a rejection of others, they are an affirmation of yourself. They say, I love you and I love myself too, and I want to be in a relationship with you in a way that is healthy for both of us. The connection between boundaries and love without boundaries is not love, it's obligation, it's people pleasing, it's giving from a place of guilt rather than joy. And over time, that kind of love breeds resentment. Think about it. When you say yes to something you don't actually want to do, what happens? You feel drained. You feel frustrated. You start to pull away. Not because you don't care, but because you've stretched yourself too thin. Love can't thrive in that space. True love, the kind that lasts, the kind that nourishes rather than depletes, comes from a place of balance. And boundaries create that balance. How boundaries show love, boundaries communicate clarity. Love is not about guessing games. When you set boundaries, you tell people how you need to be treated. You remove confusion. You make relationships stronger because everyone understands what is and isn't okay. Boundaries prevent resentment. Have you ever given too much only to feel exhausted, unseen, or taken for granted? That's what happens when we ignore our limits. Boundaries prevent us from reaching the point where we start to resent the very people we care about. Boundaries honor your capacity. You cannot pour from an empty cup. When you protect your energy, you ensure that when you do show up for others, you do so fully, without resentment, without exhaustion, without depletion. Boundaries teach others how to love you. We train people how to treat us by what we allow, what we reinforce, and what we walk away from. When you set a boundary, you're saying, this is how I need to be loved. Can you love me in this way? And if the answer is no, then you have your answer about that relationship. Boundaries strengthen self-respect. Every time you enforce a boundary, you send yourself a message. I matter. My needs are valid. My time is valuable. I deserve to be treated with respect. That self-respect becomes the foundation for every healthy relationship you build. The fear of losing people, one of the biggest reasons people struggle with boundaries is fear. Fear of upsetting others, fear of rejection, fear of losing relationships. And yes, sometimes when you start setting boundaries, you will lose people. But the truth is, the people who leave because of your boundaries were benefiting from your lack of them. The right people will want you to feel safe, heard, and valued. And the ones who get angry, the ones who push back, they are revealing something important. They were more invested in what they could take from you than in truly loving you. Boundaries are not just for others, they're for you too. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, they are also about saying yes to yourself. Saying no to toxic behavior is saying yes to peace. Saying no to overextending yourself is saying yes to rest. Saying no to people pleasing is saying yes to self-respect. And that self-respect, it is the foundation of everything, because the way you treat yourself sets the tone for how others will treat you. Practical ways to set boundaries with love start small. If setting boundaries feels uncomfortable, begin with something simple. Instead of over-explaining or apologizing, try saying, I can't commit to that right now. No justification, no guilt, just truth. Be clear and direct. Boundaries should not be vague. Instead of, I don't like when you do that, try, I need us to communicate differently because I feel disrespected when you raise your voice at me. Clarity prevents misunderstandings. Release the guilt. You are not responsible for how people feel about your boundaries. You are only responsible for setting them in a way that is honest and kind. How they respond is up to them. Expect pushback. Some people will test your boundaries. Stay firm. Repeating your boundary doesn't make you rude. It makes you consistent. Remember, boundaries are a form of love. Love for yourself, love for the relationship, love for the life you are creating, one that is filled with mutual respect, care, and balance.